We got another episode still here in Nashville. Um, Excited for this one. We got a business owner um, of, I would say, the biggest, underwear brand right out in the market. Um, got Kurt. How do you pronounce your last name, Kurt?
Flights.
Flights.
Yeah. So I would say like the Jordan shoe.
Like the Jordan
Spelled
shoe?
different, but yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. Yeah. So super excited to have you on the show, man. Thank you for coming out. Really want to get into like a lot of the upcoming of like where you started from with the brand and how you got it to where it's at, and what you plan on doing in the future to just to keep it relevant, and kind of just want to pick your brain a little bit on that topic. So yeah,
Yeah,
man.
just it's a super interesting story. So we kind of read up on it, and there's a lot of good stuff there, man. I know you've like I said, like we had a brief conversation. It's a brutal industry, man, that people don't realize. So yeah, let's get right into it. Let's see. So how did you guys really start in the I guess in the clothing industry? How did
Yeah.
you guys really get into the apparel? Was it first PSD or was it a different? Did you guys take a crack at it and have any failures or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the nice thing about being in, I'd say being in the industry now, 10, 13, 15 years is, when you start out, you're hopefully naive to the industry, which is one of the, curse and blessing for us and our success stories. Cause we didn't, I always say we didn't read the black book of like how to build a brand. We really didn't know what we were doing, kind of fresh out of college. And so sometimes that's the nice thing about starting a business is you're not kind of beat up by the industry. You don't know how easy it is to fail and what it actually takes to be successful. And you're kind of just naive and just charging. And so, so I always say like, our beginning story. So we started in 2007. So it was during, I say, a pandemic, the first crash
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
when
the
we were
big
starting,
crash, yeah.
so we were kind of, I always say pandemic proof because we started when there was no money in the industry. But what was good for us is, we were kind of, Facebook had just kind of started. So you still had to have a college ID. So nobody really was paying on social media, it had to be cool. And then, nobody was really putting money in the industry because all the big brands were dying or cutting back budgets. And then here we are, kind of, coming in the scene. So my brother was the original, artist and creator, and it was kind of his concept. I went to school for business and always kind of had a hustle. And I think, the first thing I always talk about is like we were always like hardworking. That was the biggest thing is like, it was just, um, really looking at like dedicating our lives to it. I know when we talk about failing in the industry, I mean, a lot of people dabble or they can't give up, their entire life, friends, family, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is. You literally, when it talks about the first phase of success, it's like 24/7, especially when you had no money. I mean, we were from upstate New York. So we think we got a $5,000 credit card, and that was huge. I mean, that was like
Damn.
millions of
Man.
dollars to us
Uh-huh.
because it allowed us to, go to an event and order inventory and whatnot. But I mean, 2007, when we started, we were influenced by, two things. My brother, who was 2 years older than me, he was influenced by pop culture. So he was from that Tupac, Biggie, Boo Boo, 555 Soul. But being from upstate New York, we really weren't from that. We weren't from New
Yeah.
York City, and we weren't from the West Coast,
West
or
Coast.
in LA. So we were kind of seeing what's on TV and reading magazines and what MTV was kind of spitting out. But then me being kind of 2 years younger, I was influenced by the action sports industry. So Volcom, Hurley, DC Shoes, Robin Big,
Oh,
kind of
okay.
that movement,
Yeah.
famous with Travis, that stuff. And so, clashing that together, all of a sudden there's like this new wave of marketing, which is action sports and X Games and Mountain Dew Tour and Vans Warp Tour for music, all that stuff. Blink 182 was just coming out
Yeah.
and making a run. And so, and then taking his design aspect, from what pop culture, what he was influenced by. And it was kind of, I mean, it is one of those kind of success stories. He was originally spray painting t-shirts in the garage, and then kind of made up a batch, and then I always had a hustle and was always building businesses and selling stuff and marketing, and I enjoyed marketing and kind of looking bigger than what it was. And so we ended up just really getting into it by, I had some savings and bought an RV, and at that time going to festivals and events were kind of what were standing out is building a brand. And so we kind of headed off that way, and started really going to local events, and then started local, and then went to from our little town to Hornell to Buffalo and Rochester, and then we got invited to come to an MTV spring break in Panama City. And so we ended up going to Florida and you know, the South, doing the South tour and, you know, Southern tour and whatnot. So, I mean, the kind of phase one was just going. We kind of, our business plan was, if we never stop, you know, we'll be successful. And when we say never stopped, it was 24/7. Like
The grind.
all we
huh?
need to do
Yeah.
is eat enough, you know, rainbow noodles and water, and we need to find electric to plug into at a you know 7-Eleven to plug into, and as long as we could find a you know body of people to sell, and because we were out there, you know, kind of with our consumer, we were getting you know feedback instant. So if we'd know what designs were selling, what people were wearing, you know, and we were kind of the cool guys in a bus, you know, kind of running around the country. So that was kind of phase one of not knowing what to do, but being out there. I mean, that first grind was just not knowing, but charging every single day, you know, to try to figure it out and not really knowing what you're chasing other than, you know, you want to create a brand that people care about. You know, which we at that trying to do that, we actually created a movement, you know, which is even better. And then, you know, essentially, you know, continue to scale and be cool. And so you start reading stories of how people have done it. And then we got to see kind of what people did wrong, you know, brands that
Yeah.
had a run, died, were trending and downtrended, and essentially, you know, we're out of business. And
What was the feedback that you were getting from people when you originally pitched, hey, that we're going into underwear? Like that's to me that originally now it's not such of a big shocker if somebody were to say they're going into underwear, but back then you guys are kind of like the first brand to actually go and dabble into that. As far as what I've seen, like design on underwear and so forth. So to me, it's kind of like a crazy pitch. If somebody came to me and was like, "Hey, we're gonna go all in on just underwear. We're gonna go into like a design on underwear, and that's what we're gonna brand it off of."
I mean, you know, I always say like with getting into business, you don't know where you're going to end up. Like, so we originally started in apparel. We were thinking we were going to be, you know, a brand. We were just thinking of it a brand. So we were producing anything. I mean, we were doing hats, t-shirts, belts.
Oh, okay.
We were doing everything we could. We were just a brand. We were out there just creating a movement with people following the brand, want to be part of a brand, because that's kind of what we were influenced by. And then, you know, what had changed is we actually went to an event that we had went to 3 years in a row. And so it was like first year, 10 grand, next year, 25 grand, next year, 25 grand. And we're like, whoa, wait a second. Did we hit a wall here? Like, why didn't we continue to grow and double and triple? And what had happened is all the kids that were looking up to us when we were the cool brand that had just started in an RV were actually influenced by us. And we kind of, they actually 3 years later, there was actually some kids that were wearing our stuff that actually came up with their own brand and were coming out basically taking our story and going, man, we could do that too. And my dad's actually wealthy. And they were kind of picking up where we had started, or we were 3, 4, 5 years into it. And they were starting on that same level because they had funding or they had a good idea. And kind of goes back to where I always say, like, the easiest part is the idea. And the brand. The hardest part is actually standing up a full infrastructure and a brand. And what was changing in the industry was you didn't have to go to a festival or a concert or an NBA game or whatever to get cool merch anymore. You used to be like, you'd go out for the summer and you'd come back with a band tee and everybody like, oh my God, you know Blink 182. It wasn't like that anymore. You can get on the internet, you can get on social, and you could do different things. And so all of a sudden that OG way of building a brand was kind of sped up with these new brands because there was internet and social media. And so, and we realized that there was kind of this, we called the category killer movement, where it was like Beats and Skull Candy were doing headphones. That headphones have been around forever.
Yeah.
But they were taking it and they were branding it their way. You know, Stance was just kind of chirping at doing socks, but they're coming from the Skull Candy family. So they had already done it with Skull Candy, and they kind of founders, you know, got involved in Stance and basically said, we're going to do the same thing. So there's Neff was doing beanies. Herschel was doing backpacks. And so all of a sudden there was like this kind of this new category killer movement. We did underwear, and we always knew that everybody loved our underwear. You know, cause we kind of took like a premium approach, you know, to a kid, but it was a uphill battle. Nobody wanted to spend $20, $25 on a pair of underwear at that time. You know, this is early in the days. Like, you really had to sell your ass off to get somebody to stand behind your brand and put that money up. And so for us, what had happened is, we actually had it where we had an athlete. So when we were in Buffalo, Stevie Johnson for the Buffalo Bills was kind of that first fashionable guy, tattoos, sleeve. And he was from the West Coast in Buffalo, but he was getting deals with Vizio and he was being from the Buffalo Bills market. He was getting fashion deals. He was just a cool guy. hung out with Snoop, hung out with Matt Barnes, you know, when he was the Lakers. And so he kind of showed us this new world of like cool, fashionable athlete. And anyways, we were trying to do a deal with him. He actually had an on-field Nike deal. And Nike was like, well, wait a second, you know, you can't do a deal because they have apparel with PSD. He wanted to do a PSD deal.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we saw the opportunity right there to basically shut down apparel. That event that I did 25 grand the third year showed us that we were going up against a whole nother beast of building a brand in apparel is different than looking at going, we can own a category and a movement. And it also loopholed the Nike contract. So if we were just an accessory, it would loophole his on-field head-to-toe Nike deal.
Oh, okay.
And so we actually pivoted. So there's a few things that went into why we went into underwear. One, there's a category killer movement starting or going. Two, it gave us the opportunity to not have to go out and try to take down another apparel brand that everybody could do. Screen printing was easier to do now. It wasn't that you had to go source in another country anymore, but it could print up a t-shirt, everybody could put it online. So we avoided that. And then it also loopholed the Nike contract. And so we actually pivoted because of that Nike contract. So we gutted the entire website within like 20 minutes, left 4 pairs of underwear on the website, went back to Nike and said, no, we're an underwear brand. They refreshed the website and they were actually confused. They're like, maybe we looked at a different site and they are an underwear brand. And so they signed off on Stevie Johnson's deal. And once we did that, we bulldozed the industry. We started loopholing every contract, Adidas, Under Armour, Nike. And it was kind of that, like, we had to be in the industry charging to have the knowledge to even pivot to do that. And then once we committed, it was like, we're going to own this thing. And we were influenced by Joe Boxer from the 90s.
Oh yeah.
We were influenced by, like all these different, stories about taking a category and growing and whatnot. And so it was kind of,
Who was the mastermind that found the loophole?
I mean, it was myself with, I talk about kind of, you're always getting smarter every day. Like I say, like in the industry, if you're getting better every day, as you get like, so like Stevie Johnson, for example, like that deal was the worst contract we've ever done. But I got my ass kicked on Stevie Johnson's deal. His agent did an amazing job and I respect him for it. But I took that ass kicking. And by the time I get to Kyrie, KD, LeBron, Melo Ball, whatever it is, I'm a stud by then because I had to tuck that education that I got from getting my butt kicked in the first deal. And so it's kind of that same like understanding like, contracts. So we look at it and we go head to toe for a Nike deal. Was that head to toe? But there's another phase called undergarment. Is that accessories and undergarment? And then we find out, no, it's not. Well, okay. Well, then if and my main quote, and this is what I remember I'll never forget this. We were on with his agent. I said, well, if Michael Jordan can do a Hanes deal, why can't Stevie Johnson do a PSD deal? Yeah, and it was like, boom, we got him. And they loved Stevie and what he was doing. And then it went into Kyrie and all this other stuff. So all of a sudden it was like, we found this kind of loophole based on Jordan and Michael being able to do Hanes. And we were able to take that and loophole with PSD.
Damn, that's a big loophole to find. But that's a good push to say that, hey, I'm not giving up, right? You could have easily just walked away from it and be like, you're right, Nike, I'm not gonna mess with it. But you guys did your research.
Well, you guys cleared the website, man. That's hilarious. That's awesome, man.
And then you talk about gambles. I mean, you look at it, and I think if we wouldn't have been out on the road going to events, because we were living high. We were the cool guys that rolled in a 40-foot bus to college campuses. Everybody went nuts. We'd sell out. So we were feeling really good about the brand and the movement. But then when you hit, like I said, when we early on hit a wall of like, holy shit, we didn't grow at this event. We thought we were going to continue to double. So right there, taking that knowledge, if we weren't at that event and at that festival and we weren't grinding every single day at these events, to realize that there is actually a wall you could hit with apparel. And then you'd have to look at that problem going, okay, now in order to grow, do you got to go raise money? How do you get to that next level? What do you have to do? And we just happened to recognize that there was an opportunity in a different category that might've been less, I would say competitive, but kind of less competitive, but also was ready to be, kind of reinvented because nobody's made a movement in underwear since Joe Boxer. I mean, Joe Boxer in the 90s. I mean, that was a movement in boxers from whitey tighties to boxers. And we were coming from boxers to boxer briefs with a younger demographic in kind of more premium way. And so we always said like the new kid that's spending $200, $300, $100 on Jordan shoes can't wear Jockey or Hanes. They have to complete that kit. And we were
Yes.
kind of giving, them the reason to wear it and the wide waistband. And
What was that deal looking like with that Stevie Johnson? That
I mean,
first
those
deal?
early days, I mean,
Yeah,
we
but
didn't
that's
because we didn't have money. I would say like the nice thing about not having money is you couldn't lean on it. And money is a curse. I mean, money is like that crutch and curse. And so like I can build, like if you asked me today, build something right now. If you had zero money, I could do a really good job with it. But if you had money, it's like a drug. You're just leaning on it over and over and over. You're hiring people you can't afford. You're paying for marketing you shouldn't be doing. Like you're stronger without money. And so one of the things about our upbringing with the brand is because we never could hit that money button to solve for something, we had to be better. The athlete had to like us because we couldn't pay him. So like a Stevie Johnson deal, like he had to go in there with his agent and be like, they've got no money to pay me. Now his agent did a great job at squeezing money we didn't even have out of us, but it was a low guarantee because we didn't have a lot of money, and then royalty based on collections and stuff. But because we learned that it didn't return on that deal, like we got a great exposure, and it got us Snoop and Matt Barnes got us to this. And it started that snowball effect of connections. It was a great connections, and it got us out of our small town of, let's say, upstate New York. It allowed us to kind of get to another phase in our brand. But as far as like returning dollars, it wasn't a good deal.
That's like a big thing on the apparel side, huh? Is like most of the time you don't. It's like you said, the exposure sometimes is bigger than the return on investment.
It's what you
right?
want out of it. You have to start. You have to start somewhere. It's like us in the Europe market right now. Like we're going. We have a really big international push, and we have to redo what we've done here. We're not going into Europe going, we're PSD from the US. You should just love us because of our being the number one brand in the world on TikTok. Instead, we're looking at the same way we did it here, where we started with somebody. So we're going over there with the knowledge of what we did here. We're kind of just bypassing 10 years of what we learned here, 15 years. And we're just going to start from where we are now here, starting over there with having a stud that allows us to get into other athletes, other celebrities, other, influencers, into retail stores. You're kind of starting with the knowledge that you gain from, kind of growing it here.
Nice.
Hey, so from the beginning, when you guys first started, 2007, were your brand, the underwear is looking like this? You guys always had like these crazy designs all over them?
Yeah, no, we did because we were kind of design centric, and it was kind of, we were always, so in our apparel, we were successful, with people loved our product. So, we always were, I kind of mentioned it to you, when we were talking earlier, is like, if people like your brand, that's half the battle. Like,
Yeah.
being like, people truly like your brand and you don't have to sell them on it. That's one thing that we've had from day one. Like, always had great designs, always had a good movement, always had good messaging. And so as far as like the underwear always selling, like, fact, like, always sold. So that was never the problem. Like the kids, I always say kids, because we were, going to younger demographic, I say 12 to 25, we owned them, like they loved what we were doing. We were young. So we were kind of living with the consumer. The designs were always loud and made sense. And we were kind of a staple. But what we did is, it was a premium product. Kids were coming out of like Hanes and Jockey and a 12 pack of what their mom was buying them.
Yeah.
So to get into a premium pair of underwear, it was like butter. It was like the best thing they ever wore. And then they couldn't go back to Hanes or Jockey. So it's kind of like, once you got them, you knew they had to have 7 pair, or they're washing it every day or every other day or whatever.
Or not washing.
Turn it inside out. Exactly. And so we were kind of creating that movement where, you had to get them through 7 days or more. And then because we were taking kind of we liked that sneaker drop where, man, you had a reason for them to come back all the time. And because we were, in our own space in that category, we just, you look at the collections and who we work with and what we do, how do you continue to sell somebody more than 7 pairs? And we kind of mastered that.
Yeah, it's incredible, man, what you guys did. Like now, like I have 2 boys in high school, and they and I've coached their football teams growing up from when they're young. But all the kids now are wearing these things, and their shorts, they're pulling their shorts up high enough so that you can see the bottom of the underwear. Everybody has to know that, hey, I'm rocking PSDs. Like,
it's crazy.
It's just crazy when
you talk about being, I always say, like, it is a little bit of marathon. Like, I know when you talk to any successful kind of entrepreneur, they're like, enjoy the journey, keep getting better every day. Like, it doesn't matter if it's toothpaste, music, whatever you're doing, it is just survival. Like, you have to be in it. And I'd like to say, like, early on, I mean, we struggle. I mean, the struggles have been longer than the good years. I mean, we've been in it for a long time. it was a lot. More years than not was nobody wanted the underwear, or even if they wanted the underwear, going back into what it comes in inventory, shipping, delivery, accounting, all the stuff that comes into it, employees, managing employees. I mean, there's a lot that goes into just being able to be successful that you don't see, the behind the scenes stuff. But creating that movement is one of the things that we always said is, again, going back to the money thing, is we never wanted to buy being cool. So because we always had to be authentic, so every athlete, every celebrity, every shout out, like, for example, we don't ask for shout outs. If Jimmy Butler wants to talk about us today, he'll talk about us because he likes our brand. We never send him about, he's a partner, investor, whatnot, but we never go out and say, this is part of your deal or you need to do this. And we stayed true to that. And I'll tell you, when you talk about your kids, we're never worried that your kid is going to pick up PSD and pick up another brand and go, man, I don't know which one I want to wear. It's no question it's PSD every time, because we've kind of created that movement from the early days, and we never came off that mark of paying our way to the top, that is authentic. And I think reading those stories, if you look at authentic brands, Supreme and Staple, whatever these brands, Billionaire Boys Club, that have been around forever, that is one thing that they all check that box of being authentic, and they have that movement. And
the grind, right?
They have that grind.
Yeah. Because it seems like there's a lot of everything that you've learned on your way up, right? It even betters the brand and helps you sustain once you get there, right? If you're just buying your way to the top, you don't go through those struggles. So it can hit you all at once. You can lose a lot of stuff. And like you said, paying for things only gets you so far,
Struggle. I mean, the struggles too. Like I always say, like we were thankful for struggling on hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars versus millions of dollars. So I appreciate the struggle early on. When I made $100 mistakes or $1,000 mistakes or whatever it was early. It hurt because we didn't have the money, but we got so much better that now that the brand's making millions, we don't make those mistakes. And even with hiring and firing and your infrastructure and your team, I mean, I'll tell you, like my team now, I joke around this all the time, but I'm like, we are the baddest in the industry. We will bulldoze every single, I don't care how big someone's infrastructure, my guy is better or my girl is better because of the infrastructure and the team we put together. It was my original mentality. Let's say myself, my wife now was who never really gets a shine, but was a stud behind us. My brother, we were always, killers in the industry, working harder than everybody else without money. And now my team, my current staff, the team we built, it's the same culture, same pedigree. We will bulldoze anybody. And it's why we continue to grow. And I always liked when, people poke holes in the brand. Like, well, what if this is a trend, or what happens if one of your athletes pulls a Tiger Woods? It's like, or whatever, like we get all that stuff. I love when people poke holes because it's one, made us better. But then when you answer that question with why, it's not just like one reason why. It's like I like to go like with 30 things. Like, we have X amount of, why, what happens if your athlete doesn't play good anymore? Well, we've got athletes, we got influencers, and the brand stands tall. What if your license doesn't work anymore? What if this retailer goes out of business? What if e-com no longer is a thing? Like you kind of answer that to safeguard yourself to always be, kind of, I would say pandemic proof. We didn't grow yes, we grew during COVID. We were growing before that, and we're growing after it. Our Q1 numbers now are way more valuable that everybody else isn't growing, and then, and it goes back to 2007. Like we were growing during a pandemic then, and we are now too.
Yeah. Seems like two key attributes to a successful person or brand is having consistency and a killer instinct.
It's true. I mean, and it's not, and I always say, like, especially nowadays with the internet, you hear a lot of people like barking, like, be on the grind, get up at 5:30 in the morning and take your vitamins and sleep 8 hours or do whatever. And it's kind of like one of those, like, anybody can say that, but it's like a full lifestyle change. Like, like if you really are a killer or you really are going on the grind, like you are waking up like that and you're wired that way. And it's one of those, like, it's your lifestyle. If you think about that, like, whether it's connections, if you're going out and getting connections, like I was telling you, like I flew, the double red eye to Vegas yesterday to then fly back here, but it wasn't for theatrics. It was, had a meeting. We had to go in and let's go to work. Let's get this thing done and get back, because I value what I have to do here and with my family or whatnot. But it is a certain mentality, and it's one thing to work hard, but then there's like this next level of working hard. And because it's not just working hard and like, I'd say digging a ditch all day, you're working hard, but is there a a digging a ditch with a purpose and beyond that? Yeah, it is kind of a certain way you're wired to kind of, I say, that next level. There's a lot of successful companies that can work hard, and then there's ones that are trying to go to the moon every day.
To the next level.
Yeah.
How is it? I'm always interested in this. Is I have kids. He has kids. How is it balancing the two? Because obviously it takes a lot of time, like you said, a lot of sacrifice. How much of a struggle is it balancing that family life, obviously with the kids and so forth, and the business aspect of it?
I mean, I'm a big fan. I always say, because come from a small town in upstate New York, so I was kind of like, I was always, my style is reverse engineering everything. So like if I look at a brand, I look at it and go, how did they get there? Even if it's like a Nike, okay, start, you read that entire story, but you get into the weeds on it. Like, when did he get investment? How did he get investment? Was he partying and ran into somebody and that's how he got investment? Was it a college buddy? It was, and start to get in the weeds of like really what had to have to happen to get to a level of Nike. You look at successful business guys that have successful families. Because I know a lot of people that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars and their kids hate them and their wives don't know them. And I know there's a lot of guys that have no money and their kids love them and their wife loves them and whatever. And so my thing was, I was always looking at like, where is that happy balance? And if I want to be, how do I be a coach for T-ball and have kids and be part of their life? Because what's the point? If I want to be a good family, good husband and a good parent, and my kids love me, how do I do that? And also be in beast mode every single day with a company, because I've seen it and I've actually experienced it. When you have kids, it changes you. Like, I was a killer in business because it was all I knew and it was all I was doing. And I always say, like, my wife, she was actually, I met her a year into PSD. And I always say, like, if I didn't have, it's a different level of security when she buries me like I bury other people. I mean, her mentality. So as far as like a power, team, it was a difference in security, because she believed in me and believed in the movement. And it was kind of like one of those things where together we could do anything. It was like when we were living in LA, I was living in my brother's buddy's closet and we had a twin bed and it didn't fit. So it was a bowed twin bed and she had to sleep on her side and I had to sleep on my side. When you talk about a grind, but we never felt any different because it was like, we knew what we were going after and we knew how hard we were doing it. And it was kind of like when we'd open up a retailer and they would be like, oh, you have to read this routing guide. Well, that's not me. I'm not good at reading a routing guide and figuring out how to do UPCs and how to call routing and have a truck come and get it to the retailer and how to plastic wrap it and put stickers on it so they can scan it in. She was that. And so it was one of those things where between my brother in the design side, knowing what was up and coming, my now wife, understanding how to actually make it happen, and me on the forefront of anything else, we kind of became that power couple to take on anything. And that translated into the family the same way. And so what I did is, I kind of looked at that chapter of like, where's that work-life balance? Because I can't shut it off. It's like, can I play golf? Absolutely. I grew up playing sports, but I mentally can't go out and enjoy playing golf because I feel like I should be doing something more for the company. And so knowing that I have that kind of in my head, I can't shut it off. I can't go lay on a beach. I can't do it. I watch two waves and then I'm like it's kind of like the ADD problem. A bird flies over and I'm like, man, I should be selling to all these Ron John surf shops. Why am I not, And so because I can't kind of shut it off that way, with my family, what I did is I kind of set up where, I have 5 kids, 7 and younger. As far as being extreme, I kind of have that personality, 5 kids in 7 years is pretty quick, but we always wanted to have a big family, but it changed the mentality of like what your purpose wasn't going out and doing. So now just being successful wasn't just for yourself. It wasn't about really the money. It was about, being successful so that you can actually enjoy your family and not have to, let's say my passion was I didn't want to have to work for somebody else. Not that I couldn't. I was always, I could say like, shit, I worked at McDonald's. I was a hell of an employee at McDonald's, but I was looking at it from the business side. I was like, this is an amazing run business, not actually what it was flipping the burgers and whatnot. And so the kids for me was more of just kind of a different level of motivation. It wasn't what I needed. It wasn't saying like I needed that motivation to get going. I know a lot of people say like, oh, I had my first kid and it got me on track. It was the opposite for me. I mean, I had my first kid and I was going, man, I thought I was working hard. I'm going to the next level of working hard. And so even for me to be in Nashville with my headquarters in LA and in Orange County, that usually is a kiss of death. All of a sudden the original founder goes and takes a vacation, and then his management only tells him the good things. 3 years later, you find out there's a lot of bad things going on, and you're going BK. Where I'm the opposite. I've been setting up my team and my management, but I'm also on it, and I'm involved in I've earned the respect of my employees and my management to where, they know I'm on it. We've kind of created this movement together. I've empowered them where they need to be empowered. And it's allowed me to live in Nashville with 5 kids and chickens and land and whatnot. But I'm still getting on a red eye and flying out there to a meeting and kind of setting the bar. And so I think it's just kind of made me get to that next level of I always say beast mode, because I love Marshawn Lynch and I love his mentality, but how he plays football is kind of how I run a business.
Nice. Have your well, they're still young, but have they realized that like their dad is an owner of a big brand like that? Have they?
What's funny? My oldest, this is the first year that, so they grew up in the warehouse, in the trade shows, and like on the grind. So we moved as a unit. So one of the things that like we were a family every day. So we took so when I had one kid, every day go in the office, warehouse, pack boxes, like we were grinding all together. And so trade shows, we just always moved as a unit, and every year we'd add another kid. And so we just had more seats on a plane, more we drive or whatever it was. And this is the first year though, he's in baseball. And now that we're in kind of a hometown in Nashville, where we, some of his buddies were wearing PSD, and he was like real excited, and he saw the excitement from them. And so now he doesn't get it, but he's excited that he gets the kids are excited that his dad's doing something fun. And then, but it's funny because he's you always want to not spoil your kids.
Yeah.
And I remember we went to we were in, he sat courtside at a Lakers game. And I remember and he's like halftime, he's like, can we go? And I'm like, man, you know how hard I had to work to get here? And then we were at a Titans game, and he's like, hey, is there gonna be Titans cookies at this game? It's because he's only been in a box. And I'm like, wait, so the next game I went nosebleed, and I'm like, I want to be with where we're supposed to be and with the real people and whatnot. And so it was funny. So I'm in that work with that balance of like not overdoing it to where he doesn't understand reality of like what it really is like, versus kind of, so privileged. And it is fun to go to the games and sit low and whatnot. But I also want him to know there's another part of life and how long it took. So
awesome. That's important right there. Yeah, man. We've discussed just between ourselves how it could be challenging raising kids having money, right? And making sure you're teaching them just how to live life, how to grind, right? Like how to work for something. Like having money, you could just give them everything they want, and then they'll never develop like any like that killer instinct or know how to.
Which has been done before. There's a lot of stories. You can read books of wealthy people that say, I ruined my kids because I didn't want them to go through what I went through. I saw something the other day that was pretty cool that kind of changed the way I thought about it. But it was actually an interview with Pink. And she says, I have one rule in my house, like with my kids, don't be a dick. And I remember being like, that's kind of cool. She's like, I'll give them whatever they want. We'll do whatever we want, but just don't be a dick. And it's kind of like, it's funny because like sometimes it's kind of how we run ours. Like, listen, I buy them dirt bikes and I enjoy that stuff too. Like I enjoy stuff with them. So as far as like us doing extreme stuff and going places, and like, if we're, at a place and we want to live it up, like, let's go and do it. Like not just reckless, like spending money we don't have kind of thing, but more of like, we're here, we're experiencing this, let's go. And I also know that things change. So like a 5-year-old's mentality and what they're excited for is different at 3, 5, and 7.
Absolutely.
So sometimes if you kick the can too far, you kind of lose that excitement. And I remember Mike Miller, was one of our investors. Obviously we met when he was in Miami Heat, but I kind of watched his journey with his kids. And he's like, dude, all of a sudden he's like, your kids don't want to hang out with you anymore because they're going off to college and they're driving. And he's like, you forget that you only have a limited time. So I do some extreme stuff. But we do have that rule where, my parents kind of instill that there is that respect aspect where, you're not leaving your car, you're leaving your bike in the road to get run over, and then we're gonna go out and buy you another one. Yeah, it gets run over, you're riding a bent bike for a long time, or you're gonna work it off kind of thing. So there's that hard knocks, and I always I always try to really explain to them, I'm like, man, we don't judge, we're kind of a family, we don't judge. You just got to work hard every day and don't be a dick. My son took a baseball in the face, and I'm like, how that doesn't happen? Catch the ball. And that's it. That's just how we run our house. It's like, if you don't want the ball to hit you in the face, practice and catch. He lost at a game. Don't miss your foul shots. Like, get your ass in the gym and put up shots, and you won't. And so we've kind of like we kind of set that bar. Just like in business, the same thing. You want to be the best brand, fucking put the time in and bury everybody every single day. And and I think because if I lead that, you kind of have to lead by example, whether you're a dad or a business owner or whatnot. If I'm on vacation and I allow that to happen in in the companies and whatnot, I mean, if I'm willing to still broom the warehouse or put labels on, like my wife will still be the fastest, I would say, flip and fold. I guarantee she can go in the warehouse today and outpack everybody in that building because she's got the time and done it. And as long as, we're kind of willing to do it again, like my bar is set where I'm not above going back and working at McDonald's if I have to pay the bills, to keep going.
That's badass mindset, man. How was it? I know personally I've done it. It's tougher than what people think. How was it working with family as far as like your brother and coming up with that? Where did you guys always get along when you guys hit those bumps in the road? Was it tough?
I mean, it's like anything. You don't ever get along in your family. I mean, so I would say like the difference is like it's funny because I've seen this a lot again through my career where if you're just partners, the hard times come, you're like, fuck this guy, I'm out. Or this girl, whatever, like I'm out. Like it's easy if you're just partners, because partners are tough. And also but also doing it on your own is tough. You have to have partners. So it's kind of like, you can't do it it's hard to do it on your own and be the dictator and have everybody just say yes to you. You have to have that offset. Yeah. So I would say like the difference between partners and family partners is, man, you got to see them at Christmas again. And you can fight it out. I mean, like our early years, like my brother and I, we came from a competitive house. We're 2 years apart. So we fist fought every day of our lives, whether it was for sports growing up, same with the business. We still don't agree on anything. I mean, really, any part of our life, we're opposites, but the good thing that came out of it is like what he was good at and what I was good at is the end goal was the same. Yeah. We wanted to be successful. We wanted to work hard. We wanted to be respected, and we wanted to earn respect. And so even though I don't agree with anything he says and he doesn't agree with anything I say, we didn't tear each other apart, which is what a lot of partners do. Is if you're not putting in, if you get an investor and you're working 3 to 7 and I'm working 9 to 5 or 7 to 7, there's always that kind of who's doing more work. There's just those common things that why partnerships normally don't work. And with a family, you could say, fuck you, I don't agree with you. But at the end of the day, you're still family. You got to stick it out and you stay there. And I mean, it's even with like I said, my wife and whatnot. I mean, she was there from the beginning too, but it goes back into, it's like, we're all kind of in this together. And what you can't allow happen is the fail. Yeah. And so we always said, like, once you swim so far across the pond, you can't swim back. You got to keep going. And there's really no question. There's no other option. I mean, and I say that even with like investment, like once I took on investment, it was like blood money. Like they believed in me. I could not fail, because if I failed, I let them down and more people. And it kind of goes back to your family and whatnot. And so for my brother to be a designer and kind of stand down and running the business and allowing me, I had his future and his family's future. And there was a lot of pressure on that. For my wife believing in me and giving up all her dreams and whatnot to make her dreams my dreams and our dreams together, you put that pressure on your back and you just keep going. And when there isn't an option to fail, I mean, it's that next level. And I always say, I think the clearest in the worst times. I think that I'm the best in turmoil. Like I had a consultant, he came from Nike. He was the 8th employee at Nike. So he's a stud. He's older. He's seen a lot. Shit. And he's like, you are the best crisis manager I've ever seen. And it was, I mean, I looked at that and I never even realized I was in crisis all the time, but it was just part of that. Like, you can't cry about it. Whatever the project is. I mean, we've had it where you can't even make shit up. Like a container falls off the boat to your biggest account during a launch with one of your biggest athletes. And like, how do you make that story up? You got to solve for it. You can't cry. You can't call them up and say, sorry, we'll relaunch. You figure it out and you find a factory to make product in 48 hours and air it in or whatever. You just, that's that next level of like solve.
Yeah. That's a good mindset, because like
let somebody,
like you said, right. The damage is already done, right? There's not, you crying about it. Just harping on it is not going to help. It's the getting out of it. What's the best way out for the team, right?
Knowing that money cannot be an option. And you can't let anybody down if they believed in you. If you really truly believe, if somebody believes in you, I mean, you got it. It's kind of just goes old school. Like it's an old school handshake. If somebody believes in you, you gotta stand tall. And if, the nice thing about us and people always go, how do you get all these athletes? We set the bar. Like people know that we are a great brand to work with. We're good for their image. We can do what we say we're doing. They can make a lot of money if they do or their part and we do our part. And how do we talk to LeBron and do something with him 10 years ago? And now we have Bronny James.
Yeah.
I mean, we were his first
Crazy.
endorsement ever. And look where he's going, in his career. And he trusted us with his son's name, and his deal. And Bronny chose us, and so it's one of those things where it goes back to, it is a small industry. And if you do what you say you're going to do, and you keep that, kind of grind on it, and people respect what you're doing, and you have that hustle no matter what happens. Money can soften you, and success can soften you. But if you keep that kind of dog in you and you keep going.
Seems like you guys kept the same mindset from when you were small to all the way up, right? And that's gotten you all the way up. And it's kind of like your word and everything in the way that you guys do business, and people respect it all the way through in the industry. And that's kind
You
of
have to.
Yeah.
Do you have any like advice, or is there any way you can even explain like how you keep that like that hunger and that dog in you? Because a lot of times people obtain success, or they obtain the goal they've initially set out for, and once they get there, they let off the gas, they relax, they enjoy the fruits of their labor, and then they kind of just go downhill. They kind of peak and go down. How have you kept like that hunger and that dog in you to keep grinding and building?
I kind of look at it like, it sounds kind of, crazy, but you are kind of, your life is your legacy. You know what I mean? You are doing something. So I always wanted to be like, I would say like the average Joe mindset. Yeah, let's just say, and again, I'm from an average Joe family, and my, I'll never forget my dad, in his, retires is in an in-ground pool in the original house that we've had our whole lives. Sends me a picture and goes, this is what success looks like at 60. And I'm like, in my head, I'm going, success at 60. You're in the same house. But it was like, in his mind, it was like, that is success. He's happy, and he lived a great life, and he's living his dream. My mindset was, listen, we are on this earth, and and what else are you going to do? And I look at it like, if you value the relaxation, if you look at it like, I'm going to grind for X amount of years, and then I'm going to chill for the remainder, like that could be the mindset, and that could be the goal. And if that's your goal, then do it, cause that's what you kind of look at success. For me, it was more of like, my grind wasn't to go out. It was to build a company and be successful. And I always say, like, it wasn't even about the money, because money has no feeling after a certain amount. Mike Miller told me this a long time ago. He's have more kids because a Ferrari gives you no joy after 30 days. Dang. I remember being like, wait a second. So if you were grinding to get a Lamborghini or Ferrari, if somebody would have told you that, and you spent 10, 15, 20 years to get that car, and after 30 days, it's over, you'd be bummed out. So it's kind of like,
that's cool.
It's kind of understanding what you're chasing. And I think that's, for me, that dog is kind of like, I'm not looking, like, listen, do I want to go back and wonder if I can pay my electric bill? No. I ate enough ramen noodles to know that I really don't want to eat ramen noodles anymore. So like, there are certain things that I enjoy, with success and whatnot. Do I want to be a celebrity and people walk down the street and be like, oh my God, that's Curt from PSD. I know that guy. But is it cool when I'm in Utah and the guy mowing the lawn outside of Starbucks is wearing PSD? Absolutely. That's cool. So there is certain things of like, I always say, like, what keeps that dog. And that's how I'm wired, of like, yeah, do I want to be a super dad, a super husband, super family member? Like, it's kind of next level. But I think understanding what you want your journey to be. We were Tommy Hilfiger's from Elmira, upstate New York, Elmira, New York. And it was kind of cool to know. Growing up, we were just like, we always heard that story of like, dude, Tommy Hilfiger's from 40 minutes from here, and kind of seeing him and what he's done with his kids and his legacy. He's watched his company rise, sell off, bankrupt, buys it back. You look at Mark Echoes, and you look at people that their names are involved in it, and you kind of look at what you're, you almost like what's the end result? You already know what you want to be based on being in the industry or enjoying the hustle of, like, I always said, like, my mom would always come, probably still today, would always be like, don't you want to get a real job? Like, she would always come to us with like, don't you want to work for like the post office and just come home and check out and get your paycheck? Yeah. And I kind of, my set was like, my original motivation was, man, I don't want to be working for somebody else, kind of so whether it was having a lawn mowing business, so I didn't have to go to an office, or hustling Airbnbs or real estate, whatever it was, I was kind of in that mindset of, I wanted to, it wasn't even just about fashion. It was about lifestyle of like, man, I don't want to have to go punch a clock. I will, but I don't want to have to. And so with that, what do I need to do to get there? And then when it talks about being special and leaving a legacy and whatnot, it's then you get into a brand. And my original thought was you build a brand to sell it, to then go do whatever the hell you want. What's crazy is I've had the opportunity to sell this thing a few times now, and you look at the next phase and it's like, well, I would actually just probably go back and do it all over again with somebody else's brand or consult. And I'm like, why not just stay on this mission and go? There's a lot of business to be had. Now I don't want to run it into a wall, go bankrupt and leave all this money on the table, but I think understanding kind of looking around the corner is important of like, what's next and what do you want to be? And there's enough case studies. I'm not saying I'm special.
Yeah.
My story is no different than probably a lot of success or failure stories. So it's more just kind of seeing that movie, before you get there.
I bet it has to have like an emotional tie to it, to you also, right? Because it started from the bottom all the way up, right? And especially with your brother and so forth. So does that play a factor into like the selling portion of it also? Like you're just like, hey, this is my like kind of like my baby, right? I grew it into what it is, and now just to like sell it away. Do you factor that into it at all?
I would say this, like we always say core is poor,
Uh-huh.
and it's like a musician that doesn't have a radio hit. So I would say like, yes, it's my baby, but not being broke. So it's like, I will like, it's, if it was keep this thing and go through the next 10 phases, which is going to be rise, fall, rise, fall. Do I want that journey? Absolutely not, because it's my baby. It's more of like I'm here as somebody that's built a business, and I will continue to run a business. And so it's kind of one of those, like, I like to partner when it's time to partner. You take on money when it's time to take on money. You don't take on money. It's kind of like I go back to just looking around the corner. So as far as not selling it just because of the spiritual journey, absolutely not. But as far as not selling it just for the hell of it, so I can go sit on an island, yeah, that is in there. And I'll tell you that with the kids now, I met with some of the companies that own the Calvin Kleins of the world, and it was kind of cool to see that they were buying brands like Calvin and Lucky Brand and all these brands, and they were looking for their kids to come up through and run those companies. And when they were looking to buy us, I'm like, wait a second, why don't I just do that for my family and my brother's family, my whatever it is, and why don't I, if I can do both, why don't I kind of keep it going and keep on board? And as long as you're checking those boxes and continue to grow. I always say, like, I don't want to be the guy to hold it back though. So that's why I've always partnered at the right times, brought in the right people, stayed sharp, keep studying, understanding like we started when Facebook just started. Why are we the number one brand in the world on TikTok? It's not because of me, because of my team, who I put together and keep my ear to the grind to even know that TikTok is there before it's there. Like most people age out. Like I don't wear half the shit that we make. I don't wear cheetah skin underwear anymore. Like SpongeBob on underwear to me is not working, or Playboy or whatever it is. I'm wearing solid black every day, but I've been able to kind of continue to reinvent myself or stay sharp, whether it's through my team or through just how I research and what we do. And that's kind of hard of it. So I say, like, my goal is not to hold the brand back, not to sell it just for out of principle, but to kind of continue on part of that journey of it. Like what's the right timing, and whatnot. I mean, if Elon Musk sells Tesla to go do Twitter, I mean, it's probably a timing thing, and there's probably some other factors that came into it and whatnot. But like, I'll tell you right now, the underwear industry is big, and we outlasted and kind of continue to prove ourselves. There's a lot of people that failed in underwear, and during a pandemic, after a pandemic, and the market crashing, and we're kind of just starting. I always say, like, we're starting the next phase of like this kind of global movement. So there's no reason to bail.
How are the big industries when you guys got into the underwear business? How did they treat you guys, like, as far as like the Hanes and all the ones that were in the industry, for the only ones in the industry, and kind of felt you guys knocking out the door? Were they like, obviously I'm pretty sure they weren't okay with it, but was there any kind of like pushback from them or anything that they did?
What's cool about corporate stuff, seeing it from that, is like there's nobody at the top going, we need to worry about this little $100 million underwear brand, because they're making
so big already, right?
And then you got to remember, like, in a corporate, there's nobody with like heart and soul anymore into it, where they're like losing. It's a numbers game. It's a spreadsheet. So the emotion's out of a lot of that business. And so by the time we take market share from them, it's too late to counter. And so I'll give you an example. Like, I got a cold call from a CEO of Jockey, He's like, man, he's like, we're trying to figure out how to get from the 50-year-old to the 30-year-old, and you guys own the 12-year-old to 30-year-old. And it was almost like getting advice, and then we were just talking underwear. I'm not going to change his dinner plans. He's not going to change mine, but we were just talking shop. But it was kind of cool to see, like, they're not trying, they could never just spend money to come and be a PSD. And I remember when an investor told me that, he's like, if I can't do exactly what you're doing and start a brand with $10 million, then you have value. Meaning he could take $10 million and do exactly what we're doing today. Start an underwear brand and spend $10 million, get an athlete, a celebrity, a license, whatever it is. If he can't do that, then you kind of know you've made it in a staple.
Yeah.
And we're kind of in that boat where it's like 10 million, 50 million. Calvin Klein wants to come into our lane right now. I welcome you to come into the lane anytime. But they're not worried about it because we kind of own that. And so when you get so far out and you actually have that, that value from a branding standpoint, the branding can't be bought. And so, like I said, go back to your kids are choosing us every day, no matter what. Even if you brought them Calvin, you're like, no, I got you, Calvin. It's better product. And look at this athlete's wearing it now. It's not going to matter. They're going to be like, Dad, who cares? I'm wearing PSD, whether you got it for free or not, or whatever it is. And so that was always the goal, is we had to be strong enough as a brand to then have that value point where they choose us first and whatnot. So going back to your question is, they haven't been really receptive of, because the early years they weren't worried about it, but now
it's too late, right?
Guess what? So now they got to buy you. It goes back to, Converse and Nike bought Converse to shelf them, to get them off of the basketball industry because they were taking market share. And it's kind of like us. So it's what the naiveness of the industry, like that question, great innocent question, because the way you're looking at it is going, you're thinking that Calvin Klein and Hanes are going to come in and just try to take us out.
Yeah,
instead, they try to buy you.
Oh,
so it's actually because they can't be you, but they have to kind of buy you and then figure out how to control the plan to then not take market share.
So, gotcha.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we touched on this a little bit before we hopped on the pod, but talked about just the apparel industry and how hard it is. My partner and I, we have initially dabbled into trying to start a little apparel brand. We still have some hats and stuff, but we never, like you said, the idea is the easy part. Having an idea that's the easy part. It's the execution of it. We never looked 10 steps ahead and thought about, oh shoot, we need a big old warehouse for inventory. We need to know, what our age group is that we're targeting and how much we're gonna need and what sizes we're gonna need. And there's so much that goes into that. Do you have any, or would you give any advice? Somebody like brand new trying to get into the apparel industry?
Yeah, I always say this. I'm a big intern or go work for a company. Like if I was going to start a coffee shop right now, I'd go work for Starbucks, or I'd go work for the local coffee bean and tea leaf or whatever. Like you're getting free education. Like one of my employees just took a huge job at Liquid Death, and he got the company, or he got the job, wasn't qualified compared to 90% of the people that were applying because he worked at PSD. And it was one of those things where we've now become a stable as a brand that people can respect and go, oh man, they know social media, they know marketing, they know athletes, celebrities, they know scaling a brand. My advice would be is go work for somebody, go work for a company that you want to be, or study it, reverse engineer it, because you're right. The biggest mistake of apparel, getting in the apparel industry, is grabbing a cool design, going to a print shop, buying inventory with the credit card, the little money you have, the startup, selling all mediums, and all your money is in larges and XLs or small. And so that's phase one. So now how do you buy it? Now, if you spent your only $3,000 of your name, you either got to go into more debt to fix that one lesson that you got, which that one lesson is just the first of many lessons. And so then it's kind of one of those things where, but if you go work for somebody, now you know it, and it either pivots your path where you change how you want to do it, or you recognize this is going to be a fucking grind. And there's gonna be a lot of things that have to go right and wrong. And am I willing to give it up? And that's why I say, like, I am a believer in going as hard as you can, as young as you can, because all the mistakes you make when you don't have kids or you don't have big mortgages or rents, or, you can make mistakes and rebound on them, versus when, you're in a career mode and you can't make mistakes on the inventory because it's actually your livelihood and you affect somebody else's life, So I always like that. I gave up my 20s. Like every single second of my 20s was given up to the brand. So by the time I was in my 30s and I had other people looking up to me or payroll or kids or whatever, I made all those mistakes. I've made all those adjustments. So I'm not making the 2X mistake, having too much inventory in 2Xs or smalls and having mediums and larges sell out. So I say, go work for somebody, go read their, you just got to get better every single day, every single second. You need to be bettering. I would say move those chains down the field. Like it's a football mentality, like move the chains down the field every single day, every single second. And you're going to be better off than you were, yesterday.
Did you guys, was there ever a point in time where you guys thought about throwing in the towel, where it was just like getting too tough or running into too many walls, and you were just like, hey, I'd rather just not deal with it and go into another venture?
I mean, there was always those days. I mean, actually, yeah. I mean, but it was kind of one of those things where I remember, yeah, I mean, not that long ago, you just not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm like, it doesn't matter if we're 500,000, 10 million, 100 million. It's the same shit every day. Same problems. You get a big PO, you got to manufacture it, you got to ship it, receive it, you got to get it. It's got to sell through. You got to market it. You got to get the marketing athlete to show up. I mean, it's the same shit, whether it's $10,000 or $100 million. It's the same shit every day. So as far as not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, absolutely. Like you kind of see like, this is going to be what, that's why I say you got to kind of enjoy the journey and what you're learning and what you're doing and whatnot. But I'll tell you, the throwing the towel thing changed because it was the easiest thing to do was throw in the towel. And we got to see it. Like as we outlasted people, we started to see people throw the towel in, and then we'd see them come back 3 years later and try to start it all over again because they went and worked at the post office, and it's in that 45 grand, 60 grand didn't check the boxes anymore. They could try to come back. And so we got to actually see the second round when people throw the towel in and try to come back, or they go work for a brand and you got some punk ass kid telling somebody you what to do now. And you were that punk ass kid telling yourself what to do and making mistakes. And so I would say like we quickly ruled that out. I had one time, I'll never forget this. It was, we were making a run. I took on investment. I was in Santa Monica, I might've had a 1-bedroom apartment, but it was a struggle. I had some payroll. It was always a struggle every week to pay payroll, pay rent. Even though we were growing in retail and we had some wins, it didn't matter. You grew, you had to fund that growth. And so it was one of those things. And I remember, but we were respected in the industry. And I remember I had a guy from Red Bull call and go, man, I've got this job for you. It was like senior marketing director. It was like $260,000 a year, most money my whole town's ever seen, kind of thing. Wow. And I'm like, and I remember for a split second, I was telling my wife about it when I was sitting there. I'm like, and instead of my thought going, do I bail on this project and leave everybody dry and just go worry about myself and be selfish? I said it out loud. I was like, can I do both? And I remember thinking, so my first thought was, can I do both? Can I take this money from Red Bull and just do more hours than I am now to then help fund PSD? And then I thought, you know what, if I do both, I'm giving up on everything we've done and whatnot. I just need to put everything in. You just need to go next level. I thought I was beast mode then, like what's that next level and how do I do it? And that was the only time I thought about like, not do I throw in the towel, but could I do both? And instead of doing both, I found other outlets. And I mean, we've got a quiet $4 million air freshener business that nobody even knows about. I'm in Target, Walmart, Spencer's Gifts. And because I take the same mentality with PSD, I took those same designs and took a category that was underserved, automotive air fresheners, and took PSD. So if you go into Walmart and Target right now, you can go buy a PSD air freshener. In all those retails, PSD, same branding. Yeah. But I did that to fund the underwear that needed to grow, further, and they didn't have time to go raise more money, all because it kind of sparked that from that Red Bull offer and whatnot. So throwing the towel was never an option. And so you just couldn't even quit, because at the end of the time you quit, that means you're bankrupting. It's hard to even quit at that point. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Have you ever had a vehicle go to impound? But it's kind of the impound method. You can't donate your car. You got to pay to give it to them, or you got to pay to get it out. You're fucked either way. So this is the same with a company. You either got to pay to get rid of it because you owe all these people money, or you got to pay to keep going. You might as well keep going. And so it is that. So it was kind of like throwing the towel. It wasn't even legally an option, basically, because going bankrupt and taking the easy route, we never just thought it was the easy route out, and so as we kind of took that as like an option, it's not even a thought. That's probably why we were able to raise money and continue to go, because people want to invest in us because the mentality is there. Like everything you'd want out of a brand and a owner or a president, CEO is kind of that hard knocks, mentality. So when you're doing your podcast, if when you're raising money to go to the next level or get the next talent or whatever it is, I mean, you want somebody to look at it and go, it's a fucking sure bet with these guys because they're going to give up their lives to make sure to protect my money.
How long before you guys started seeing money on your side as far as the owners go? Because I know a lot of the times as brand deals and even just companies in general, right? Most of the time people think that you're successful, but most of the time you're dumping most of that money back into the company to see it grow, right?
Yeah.
So when did you actually start seeing the fruits of your labor, I guess?
I would say it goes back to like perspective. So like I remember a big win early on in the days was when PSD could pay our rent. So it was like instead of living in my buddy's closet on the double, twin bed with my now wife, when I could have my own one bedroom apartment in a crummy kind of place, and PSD paid for it. No salary still. All I was worried about in phase one was, can we eat? Can we sleep? Can we pay our payroll? So it was always like, and then it was the second phase was we were able to pay payroll. And then if I had to give up my check or my brother or my wife, whatever, for I would give it up for however long I had to go scramble to get a PO because I don't know if you know this in the industry, but there's net terms.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The retailer
30,
doesn't
right?
pay you on time and you need that money. We were just the first to give up our check. So I would say like it had, we were always dumping back in for phase one. Then it was, we were just paying for the bare minimums, not cars. Like it was company car, company apartment, whatever it was. And then it was the next one was, getting actually being able to cash your checks consistently for a salary, which was $40,000 or $60,000. And in California, you're in poverty for that. And so then you got that. And then the next level is, okay, can you get paid industry standard, which is still below, for a company, $50 million, $60 million, whatever it is. I would say, and also the one thing about paying yourself is, again, when you give investors, that's another curse of getting investment or having success is like when you start to pay yourself industry standard. I looked at it like, what's the bare minimum I can do if I'm, what's the bare minimum I can live off of always? Because I would look at it and say, I'd rather pay my GM more and have a better GM or somebody that's on the same path as me than me pay myself something that like isn't going to benefit me. So I'm reinvesting in not only myself, my infrastructure, my brand, but if I can next level, if I can step up every single thing, it was almost like Monopoly game. If you can continue to step up everything, because I looked at it like I didn't need the money right now because I didn't want the Ferrari or I didn't want the mansion. I wasn't taking a break, so let me reinvest all it back into it, and then everything, when timing is right, whatever it is, you kind of let that path, come in because the path has already been written. Co-owners. There's a point where you take money off the table. When you're a certain size and you take on certain investment, it's pretty standard. You take money off the table. There's dividend payments. So the story in that path has already been written. You just got to either need to learn it earlier on, read that book, talk to somebody that's been done it, which I've learned over the years through different scenarios. It's already been written. I'm not reinventing the wheel on when to make money, how much to pay yourself. Because if you pay yourself too much, one, if you take on investment, it's legally could be a problem. All of a sudden your partner's like, what the fuck? He's making $500,000 a year. And also they might think you're okay. He's getting soft now because he's making all his money. So you kind of, I took the approach of, I never wanted anyone to ever question my motive and what I was doing. And so seeing that, when you say like, when did you kind of see, the kickback is, when the brands almost like, I wanted my partners to come to me and be like, dude, you got to take more money. Like you're not taking enough. Like you got kids and you got stuff. You're making way less than industry standard. I always enjoyed that part of it. Or if we hit a certain goal, and I always say this to my sales team. I never wanted to be the owner that just said, okay, we got to grow 30% again this year. Why? I don't know, because we have to. I wanted to go like, what's our goal? What's our plan? What's our sales projection? And that's without LeBron. That's what we're currently doing. Now, when I bring you LeBron, I'm going to eat off new money or new growth. And so what I've always done is like, I've always had this normal program, and then I bring in something that I can personally control it to take it to the next level. And if I eat off that, so like I say, like an end number. If we beat our projections, we beat ever, then it's, you're kind of rewarding yourself for this next level of growth, not just what you're supposed to be doing because it's your day job.
That's a big thing in business too, is right, setting the right type of goals, right, for the next year. Like you said, like you're taking a look at and you're giving your sales team a realistic goal for the next year, right? So then they can go out and tackle that. And then the reason why I was asking that is because a lot of the times reasons why companies go bankrupt and stuff is a cash flow problem, right? Like you
sure.
said, the net 30, the net 90s, right?
Yeah.
You got to pay your employees within that period of time. So it's you have to know actually like what you can take from the company and what is there set aside to actually get it all done.
In studying, what I go back to is like the reason why I say I can't enjoy golf anymore or stuff like that is because I'm not going to make a mistake about cash flow, because I know that there's only so many options to solve that problem. You can get a shark loan, high interest rate, which I've done. Shopify actually makes a button where you can take a loan through Shopify on future ecom, but it's a shark loan through Shopify. So you're either borrowing money and paying high interest rate if you have no value. You're borrowing money through lines of credit. You're getting investors. You just start going through all those solves of what you have to do to solve that one thing, which is cash flow. So my thing was always like POs cure everything. So if you have enough POs, you could always fund it, whether it's shark loans or lines of credit or investors. If you don't have the POs, you can't go fund it. So I always made the brand stand tall by going out and getting POs and being valuable, because you can always go find the money or the resources or take a shark loan or borrow money or credit card, whatever it is, to kind of make it happen. It's the other way around. When people get backwards is when they're forecasting and buying inventory, praying it sells, praying your marketing turns out, and then, it's kind of that cycle that usually is downward spiral.
Yeah.
Kind of to go off of his last question though, like what was the time period from the idea that you guys had, the very start of your guys' business, to when you were able to buy your first apartment? You said your first 1-bedroom apartment. How long did that period take?
To be able to buy, so
Or
I'll say rent. I would say it would have been 6-7 years in. So when I say like the company was just feeding us, paying sometimes for our car insurance. Like we probably didn't even have insurance then, but like we looked at it like, so I would say like every waking second, every waking dollar went into the business, for 6, 7, 8 years for sure. And then it became, and again, because if you're, how can you take 100,000? I'm just saying, like, this is because I'm from upstate New York. So like 100 grand in California is still poverty. But what I'm saying is like, how could you take money from your company, but that company's supposed to be setting up your future? It's like
no sense.
Like we still, to this day, I still have these conversations. Like if we make a mistake and it's a $40,000 mistake, I'm like, that was a position that would have made us more money if we didn't make that mistake, kind of thing. So like, so you value the dollar so much more because of like, what could you have done with that money to make your company go further, bigger, that would then, eventually pay you back, pay you what you really want. If your goal is to just get a nice house and work a 9 to 5 and then that's fine. And then you're, like I said, the mentality of what you're trying to do when you build a company is different than if you're like, I want all of this and this is what I want to be able to do and how hard I want to work. That's why I always say, like, there's a difference between working hard and there's a difference between going to the moon.
Yeah.
And that's kind of more in you of like what you want to do. But I think studying and reverse engineering and just understanding what it actually fucking takes. Like I have somebody come to me and go like, I DM this athlete and they didn't get back to me. And I'm like, why the fuck would that athlete get back to you?
Yeah.
Your brand has zero value. You haven't earned any respect. And why would they? You have to give that guy a reason to get back to you. Why? Because they'll say, hey, can you get a hold of this athlete? It didn't get back to me. Well, I earned that respect that athlete will respond to me.
Yeah.
Like, go out there and put the time. I mean, I'm not trying to, not hard knocks, not tough love you, but it's more of like that you're wrong from the beginning to think that athlete should ever have got back to you.
Yeah.
Like, go 100%. Fucking earn your wings to get that, or go find somebody that will validate you, like Mike Miller did in the locker room for us from the athletes. Like when athletes didn't respect us because of who we were, up and coming small brand, and they had Nike deals, I found something that they respected. Mike Miller, 3-point shooter, winning Miami championships. They respect him. They're going to return his call. I don't care if they return my call. They return his call and I'm tied into him. But once we get that one win with Mike Miller, Now we're validated as a brand outside of what Mike did. And you know, Mike's a good friend. He's still, you know, investor and a partner. And it's funny now because it's the opposite. He's an agent. Kids are coming to him going, "Are you the Mike Miller that owns PSD?" And it's funny, it comes full circle because it used to be we're PSD that's connected to Mike Miller. And now it's come
Mike
full
Miller.
circle. And are you the Mike Miller that has PSD?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So now where you guys are, do you guys, are you guys, I'm sure you guys are still contacting athletes, but are athletes coming to you guys now asking like, hey, we want to work with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, now it is the nice part about the phase we're in is we're pretty, you know, established where it's all incoming. I mean, it is,
Okay.
I would even say 100% incoming.
Oh,
Like
wow.
the agent, we have good relationships with all the athletes, celebrities, influencers, you know, whatever it is, it's all incoming. And I think, you know, it's almost like, you know, you look at Supreme as a brand, you're honored. If Supreme, you know, if you hit up Supreme and said, "Hey man, send me a box," and they send you a hoodie, you'd be telling everybody that Supreme sent you a hoodie and you got to give it. It's the same thing with PSD. And if you get a deal, we just signed Carmelo Anthony's son.
Oh,
And,
damn. Okay.
and I remember Lala was like, he's so excited. He's asking me how, you know, is the deal done? Is it, you know, it was just kind of funny to, you know, to think, but it's exciting for that next generation. And we've kind of established ourselves as the brand in the category. And like I said, going back, do I want to go back where I have to go talk to a wide receiver, you know, and beg his agent to do a deal? No. You know, I kind of like the incoming thing, but it is nice to be able to kind of pick and choose. And we have a no asshole rule. I mean, we really don't fuck with anybody that is an asshole and it doesn't have the same vision as us. I mean, if you know, you look at who we work with, and if you take a step back, they all kind of check a lot of the certain boxes that we do. You know, we're not just going out and signing anybody to work with just because they're good at their sport or they're good at their social media. I mean, they got to have the same.
That's so crazy because like Mike Miller, right? You guys started with Mike Miller. That's a big gap, and you guys are still relevant enough to sign. You guys just signed Bronny James, right? So
Well, you look at Mike Miller. Mike Miller's got the #1 draft pick. You know, Paulo and Orlando Magic.
yeah.
Mike Miller, a new agent to the scene, has the #1 draft pick.
Oh, damn.
I mean,
Okay,
Mike Miller's a stud.
Yeah.
And you look at us with what we're doing. I mean, when you talk about the mentality, Mike has been out of the league for how long? Winning championships with LeBron, doing everything he's doing. It comes into the agency scene and gets the #1 draft pick and crushes it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That's
Mike,
the
even though
mindset.
you wouldn't think of him as a basketball player, like as relevant as he is right now,
Yeah.
you look at athletes that are more fashionable than Mike Miller. You know, look at Shaquille O'Neal and what he's doing, and then you got Mike getting a #1 draft pick, also having the #1 underwear brand, you know, globally. I mean, that you look at it from a career, he's a stud.
Do you guys go after like the younger athletes coming up, or do you just wait for them to come and like?
And they come to us. I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of, you know, there's no secret. I mean, it's you know what brands are up and coming, and everybody's kind of looking for that next one, and you know, so the kids are definitely coming to us. Like Bronny was the youngest that we signed, you know, originally,
Uh-huh.
and now, like I said, you know, with Carmelo's kid, you know, it's even younger now. You know, I mean, definitely fashion's getting younger. Kids
Yeah.
are getting
Oh,
younger.
yeah.
I mean, why are high school games selling out, standing room only? It's a different world that we're living right now, and you got to kind of, we always say adapt or die. I mean, you know, it's not about just the NBA anymore. When Melo, I remember, I'll remember the stat that changed our view. Kyrie Irving was our stud forever. He'd post and drive millions of people to the website. I remember Melo Ball in high school stood up in his PSD underwear, didn't even tag us, and drove more traffic than Kyrie
Damn.
on a non-branded post.
That's
And we all of a sudden were like, whoa, okay, we need to recognize this. I mean, we got Ninja and e-gaming.
Oh,
Ninja was just coming up. Fortnite had just kind of started trending. We signed Ninja. He tweets about it, which was an old platform at that time.
Yeah.
Instagram was already out. Drives like 20 million people to, I mean, just unbelievable stats from a gamer. And all of a sudden we're like, okay, it's cool to be with Kyrie and Nike and the NBA and all this other stuff. But what's this e-gaming world, you know, looking
Yeah.
like? And then, you know, onward. So that kind of adapt or die mentality has always been part of it too.
that's kind of cool. And then also as an owner, right, you have to be very open to the younger generation ideas, right? Because like myself, right, I'm getting older, so I don't necessarily know what's cool when I go to my son. He's like rocking something. I'm like, dude, what are you wearing, man? And then you go out there and you see the younger generation. You're like, oh damn, all of them are wearing it, right? So
Well, think of you always have to think about that. Every generation thinks the next generation is going to ruin it. The music sucks. So I mean,
Yeah.
you have to almost like, you have to embrace that. And that's why I say
Yeah.
like my team, my infrastructure, I value, you know, I remember my brother-in-law now, but when I married my wife and started dating her, he was like 12 years old, 14 years old, 16 years old, 24. I would always put stuff off him. And I remember he was an intern. He was 19 years old. He moves to California after high school, and I'm just abusing him. I'm just running him into the ground every day of like trying to show him what it's like to be, kind of the hard knocks of life. And he was the one that found Ninja for us. He's like, dude, he said streaming. I never heard of streaming. I didn't know what streaming was. He's like, there's this guy Ninja that's wearing PSD. You got to hit him up. And that was a big move for us. That came from my brother-in-law as an intern at 19 years old. When things trend and whatnot, it's not coming from me anymore. It's coming from the team. I mean, I might have put the infrastructure in place to then get that, to keep that bar set. But I mean, like I said, TikTok, like, I think it's the dumbest thing out. I mean, I can't believe it. Like people are dancing in their underwear. That's good for business. And I'm going to embrace that. And we're part of it. And we're valuable, to that younger demographic.
You guys have the most followers on TikTok, right? You guys are like the biggest following.
But I learned that from getting my ass kicked in Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. When Stance went to 1 million followers, it was when you couldn't buy yourself to 1 million followers. You could actually go viral still on Instagram, where you could, if LeBron says, go follow Stance, you could get 1 million followers. You can't do that anymore. The algorithms changed, the rules have changed. I learned that from Instagram shutting down the growth to by the time TikTok's unregulated, unfiltered, we went and got 5 million in front of everybody. Nobody could catch us because the algorithms change now.
Oh yeah.
So we got our 4.6 million followers before anybody. And now nobody's going to catch us because they've changed the rules and that, you can pay to advertise on TikTok anymore. So we learned that 5-8 years ago, or all these different platforms. That's why I say being in the game is important, because we applied what we learned from getting our asses kicked early to when it was relevant, and our time, our kind of ship came in and we were ready to react. And dancing in your underwear during a pandemic was important. And look at us now, kind of thing. So if you don't like the fashion, that means it's working. Like
absolutely.
If you don't like the music, it's working. And so you should embrace that, because you're right. A lot of companies get stuck into that where they feel like they're the target demographic, and you'll see brands kind of lose their buzz because they're not reinventing.
Like there were so many like big brands, right? Like at the time, I remember in high school, like FUBU, all those were so big, those brands, and now completely gone, right? Like, it's just like,
hey, they've been gone long enough that you probably could license it and bring it back. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the game I'm in right now. I'm looking at stuff going, man, I could bring that back in a second. It's almost been gone long enough, And it is there is that true 10-year cycle. I mean, I have pictures holding my son wearing stonewashed jeans with a mustache. My dad is holding me with stonewashed jeans with a mustache. I'm just saying, like, things go in cycles. Action sports has almost been gone long enough to make a comeback. It's just things go into cycles. Rap music is at its like kind of all-time low. So probably the Blink 182, whatever that next movement is probably teed up to come around again. So
that's like Champion, right? Champion. When I was in high school, I remember Champion was like at Walmart and like nobody wanted to wear it. Then it recycled back around it and it became like an expensive
Champion
brand.
Slides made a run. Crocs. I mean, actually, one of the private equity groups that invested in us this last round, the original owner of Crocs is part of that. He told me his phases of when he sold it for 870 million, when it died, when he bought it back. I mean, all of a sudden, and Crocs is relevant again. I mean, how crazy is Crocs? Crazy. I picked out my dad forever for mowing lawn and Crocs. And now, dude, I'm mowing lawn and Crocs. I mean, so it is one of those things that like, things go in waves. But that's why I say like studying. Like if it's your fucking passion, like don't scroll through TikTok because you're trying to be stimulated. You should be fucking studying. And if TikTok is relevant, then study it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I say about kind of like, it should be wired of getting better every day. And so like studying trends, Joe Boxer, PSD, FUBU, what did they do right? What did they do wrong? Why didn't they stay relevant for long enough? Or is it, even if you are, your run is over, how do you stay in business? Or when do you sell, when your run's over? Like, because things do run in a circle. I mean, Vans is down right now. Vans shoes is down. But down is still good. They're always going to be around because they're just going to have to go down for a minute to then get ready to make their next run. Because if your kid is 9 years old now, when he's 15, he's never experienced Vans before. He's getting those checkers Vans to wear with his skinny jeans because baggy jeans are coming back, but then skinny jeans has got to come back. It's that whole movement. I mean, if Whitey Tighties come back, we'll be in Whitey Tighties. I mean, it's just one of those things
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we're part of that. You got to evolve and be aware of what's coming around.
Yeah, I seen that. Even now, you guys are dabbling in like the female line, right? You guys are going towards the female, like kind of is more. It's like a slash like workout kind of type of attire, right?
I mean, right now, our kind of value point or what people like out of us is we have cool designs
Yeah.
for that younger demographic. That working out is a trend right now. I mean, girls want to be fit and they want to be cool, and we're the cool brand that they could be fit in. And even if they're wearing it for TikTok and they're not really working out, they're wearing it for us.
Yeah.
And then, it kind of just goes back into, we didn't go into women's too early, that you can make a mistake and you can go to women's and youth and other categories too early. And we're on that same mentality of like, kind of like ask us to come to the industry. So like the female side was kind of asking and begging for it. And so we drip feeded it in and it's a nice business for us and we'll continue to do it.
Sweet.
Do you have anybody that kind of mentored you, or anybody you have as a mentor right now that you go to for advice or you talk to and helps you through
I mean, each
situations?
phase kind of had a mentor. I mean, I think it's each phase, you can't, I go back to like earning respect. Like, if I'm in upstate New York and I cold call, if I ever got to a stud owner, Tommy Hilfiger's not going to return my call. His agent's not going to, or his office isn't going to. So you kind of be like each phase of my career, I would say you kind of talk to people. I always say like, I welcome everybody's opinion in their story. I don't have to use it, but I'm aware of it, how
Yeah.
people pivoted, what they moved, what they did, they've done. So each phase of my career, there's people that I've always looked up to and talked to, and then, kind of moved on to the next phase, so when I'm raising money, I've never raised money before. I would reverse engineer who raises money, how do they know it, what do they do? And then in my circle, did I have anybody that was the closest to having any knowledge of raising money? And could that person be a stepping stone to get to somebody that might've been a stud or whatever it is? So, I remember my first trip to California ever, like 2009, there was a skater, worked for this magazine, Trans World Skate. He's like, you got to get sales reps. And I'm like, who are sales reps? And that was a stepping stone of like, when you say like who you looked up to or a consultant or whatever, I'm like, that was just knowledge in the industry.
So so you guys deal with a lot of athletes and so forth, and you guys have a lot of athletes signed. And like I said, athletes are just normal people, but they just have a bigger microscope over them. So any issues or any off-court issues that they're having, how do you guys stand behind them? Because I haven't heard of PSD like pulling out of any deals with them or anything like that.
Like John Morant.
Yeah, John Morant is the most relevant one right now, right? So how do you even? I mean, Kyrie to a stance, right? How do you guys stand behind that and just stick with your athlete?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we still run our companies like a family feel. I mean, we are a family, even though we're big company now. We have a lot of employees. I mean, we've never changed that mentality. And I think the big thing is like the athletes are people. There's two sides of every story. Like I am one of those people that I don't believe the media because I've been behind the scenes before. And what the media is saying is not correct because you're sitting with the person or whatever it is. You kind of hear the behind the scenes story. So our stand was always like, listen, we're an underwear brand, and we're a family. So we an underwear brand should have no stance in politics, should have no stance in anything. It's just an underwear brand. I remember there's an Oreo story that like Oreo cookie retweeted something about politics, and they're like, why is this cookie talking about politics? Like you're a cookie. We're kind of saying we're an underwear brand, and we have a passion, we're moving, we're good people, and we have a great family feel. But we listen, an athlete's an athlete. I'm a believer in like when people make mistakes, that's when you get educated and when you go to work. It's kind of like we have a problem in the company. We go to work. We don't run from it. We don't shy away from it. We fix it and we educate and we do better the next time. And so obviously there's certain levels to everything, but like, like the John Morant, like John's a human being. He's young, he's talented, got a lot of money. You don't know his full story. You don't know his infrastructure. You don't know who's involved, who's behind it, what his day-to-day life is, And so, we don't look at it like, kind of the cancel culture thing. We've seen a lot of things over the last 15 years in the industry. And so we take a stand to just like, we're investing in the person and the movement. And we might not choose to make a poster child to somebody during a certain, like it's even like a bad game. I remember we had, an athlete one time and he didn't like to post when he had a bad game. And I respected that. He's got a day job. He can't talk about underwear sales after he just missed a game-winning shot and stuff like that. And so we've kind of taken that mentality of like, we're never in the position to change somebody's dinner plans. I'm not going to change Kyrie Irving's dinner plans. He's making a lot of money on and off the court, or John Morant, but they're not going to do the same thing for us. Like, they could be a successful program, but they're not going to change our dinner plans, good or bad. And Ja's a great example. Like, no, listen, Ja's a great person. He's a great dad, great. I mean, he's a great individual as a person. He make some mistakes. Was it what the media says versus what's the truth? Whatnot. We stand behind him as far as like, he's a great person, and he's a great ambassador, and we're kind of there whether the program changes depending on the situation. We're still behind him, and he's still a partner, and he's back,
Awesome.
and his sales are is up, and he does a good job, and the kids love him, and so we do stand tall from that. I always say, like, I got the opportunity to meet Johnny Manziel. Man, you listen to that guy's story, what the media put out versus his true story, and you're like, man, he just needed a friend in his corner. He didn't,
Yeah.
and so I'm kind of like that with like my kids. You kind of invest in them. If somebody said it's not time out, it's time in. You don't put your kids in time out. You go invest time into them, and you kind of talk about what you got to do and differently, and you kind of learn. And like, being from a small town, I was naive to the world, to a lot of things. So I've had to learn and change and adjust and get educated on a lot of things, whether it's factories in China, culture, all that. And so I kind of welcome the education and the adjustments and the change, because you're not born perfect. And you're not doing, you just kind of got to grow with it. And his age and what he's doing versus what he's going to be, in 10 years is going to be so different. So I kind of embrace, again, going back to that same the journey, live and learn, make adjustments. And
That's kind of like what you were saying, right? That a lot of people forget also, right? That these kids, they're young kids, right? Getting a ton of money into the league. So you're bound to make some mistakes, right? If you looked back at when you were 18 years old and you had that amount of money, you're bound to make some mistakes, right? It's the same thing like myself, right? I don't think there's a person. Well, I'm pretty sure there are certain people, but people make mistakes, man. And I think that's what we've gotten away from, is actually like forgiving and actually making it better. Like you said, it's not automatically kick this guy to the curb. It's like, all right, let's see how we can
Dive into
improve
it.
it. Let's
Yeah.
work through it, and let's improve on ourselves.
Yeah, huge respect for you guys for doing that. We talk about it all the time when you see a headline and, oh, these people pulled out of these guys' sponsorships and stuff like that because of a mistake. But we're like, you, you're not. I mean, you're not sponsoring the guy to be like a. You can't expect everybody to be like without mistakes, right? Everybody making mistakes. Nobody's perfect. So I mean, stick by him. You wanted him when he was doing good,
Yeah.
and then he's doing bad. You want to pull out. We don't agree. So the fact that you stuck by him, your company stuck by him and stuff, we have a lot of respect for that.
Not everybody's like well rounded, right? You're like, I'm in my belief. I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, if I sign this guy because he's a great football player, like that's what I signed him for, his athletic ability on the field to be a football player, right? Now, if he's not the best husband, okay, that's
Sure.
on that's his personal life over there. But at the end of the day, I signed him to be a great football player at the
Sure.
end of the day, right? And I feel like some of the lines sometimes get blurred as far as like, oh, he's supposed to be like you're like a kid's direct idol.
Sure.
And I really don't agree with that, in the sense that, yeah, you can look up to the guy as far as like a football sense, right? Like,
Sure.
go look up to him and be like, hey, he's a great football player. But doesn't mean that, as far as a parent goes, I feel like you should guide your kid
Sure.
to lead them in the direction that's correct, right? It doesn't mean that, hey, he's going after this guy and he wants all aspects of everything that this guy does. Yeah, follow him for the good that he has
Sure.
and go after that. I mean, you shouldn't. I don't think you should direct any kid or any youth as following, hey, this guy's good in football, follow him all the way around,
For sure.
because nobody's well-rounded, all right?
You gotta
Like,
take your bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could take, even like you do look up to this athlete, right? And he does make a mistake. You could use that as a teaching point to your kid who looks up to him. Look, he made a mistake. Look at how he's handling it. It happens. You gotta make a mistake. You gotta wear it on the chin. And
Think of the kids, think of the athletes, the young studs that are coming up. Don't go live and do that stuff on social media. Like nowadays, you have to understand the tools. It's like I'd say like parents getting on Facebook and doing stuff when you're like cringing. You're like, dude, do not, don't do that. This is how the internet works now. I saw something the other day that this kid, his mom was going nuts at the supermarket, and he's like, they're filming you. They're going to put this on the internet. Don't be a Karen. And I remember this kid was like, you're going to go viral.
Oh, yeah.
Sure enough, she went viral, but it was one of those things. So it is a teaching lesson. It's like, it's like, growing up the first, I remember when Facebook added the tagging in a photo. Man, you get caught if you were running around in your girlfriend because you got tagged in that photo. You were done. You know what I mean? You had to adapt to what it was. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's always a teaching moment, but also we bring that back to a brand. It's the same shit. You make a mistake as a company, you get better and better and better. I mean, you have to take that same mentality in all aspects of your life. Ja was with us in high school. He was in college. He was with us. We've been running with him a long time, but we've actually taken a stand at saying we're with you through the the good and the bad on your journey. Some athletes, they want to be in underwear. They want to wear the model when they're single, coming out of college, first in the league or whatever. Then they get married and they're like, man, my wife doesn't want me to be a model anymore in my underwear. The comments are getting too thirsty. And we pivot again and go, how do we grow in this career with this as he becomes a next phase, an adult and a dad or whatever, a girl, same thing. If they were an influencer as a model and now they're growing into being a DJ and they don't want to be, wearing underwear anymore and they want to be a professional or whatever they want to change. We're part of that journey with you. Going back to that, not one person or one thing can kind of take us down. You build that foundation from an infrastructure or company, it carries through. You're not, one thing is not going to take you down. So you're not worried about somebody doing that. I go back to that comment of somebody said to me a long time ago, what if this one athlete pulls a Tiger Woods? Well, we have more than one athlete. We have more than one thing going on. It's not athletes, it's not just celebrities. It's not. And at the end of the day, we always say, as long as the brand, if you take all my licenses away, you take all my athletes away, you take all my distribution away, whatever it is, the brand still has a solid following. So that's kind of like when you go to invest in me and you want to poke holes in it, I'm going to check all those boxes on why you want to get invested with me. And at the end of the day, you're like, man, where can I sign up and write this check? Because we thought of all those things and you got to attack them.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I really respect that. I really respect, like you said, standing behind the athlete at the end of the day, and not only the athlete, whoever you guys are backing, because they're at the same time they're taking a chance on you guys. It's a partnership, right? At the end of the day, and a lot of companies you see and a lot of bigger corporations, they're just quick to pull out, right? They're like, nope, wait, hey, you got in trouble. Like I said, we fail, I think, to realize is that they're humans, man. Everybody's making mistakes, right? Yeah. There's just, I heard a good saying is like, everybody makes mistakes. There's just people that are better at hiding shit. That's all it is, right?
It's true.
It's just
what's your resources to hide it.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it is.
Yeah. There is such things as innocent mistakes that you can learn from.
Yeah. 1000%. Yeah. What's I don't know, let's start to close this down, land this plane a little bit, but what's the future hold for PSD? What I know you mentioned a little bit you're tapping into Europe market, right? Going overseas and stuff. Is that like the next chapter?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I go back to there's just natural growth of brands as you get to certain levels and whatnot. So there's definitely international expansion like crazy. Right now, I mean, we've got a big Europe market, Australia, Canada, and we've got big international kind of global movement coming on. And but I also think it's also not losing focus, kind of home base. I mean, we're going to continue to kind of take care of home base, what we're doing. The category, there's a little bit more expansion into women's and youth and a couple different categories that make sense, for a brand at our size and our level and whatnot. But I mean, it's really staying the course. Like I said, protecting home base and continue to, the natural progression of what a brand should be doing and staying relevant. I mean, I think, keeping your ear to what's next, what's going on. You're not saying what's next to be a chameleon and lose your core, values and who you are and what you are to get here, but you're also just being aware of what's next to be relevant.
It's awesome, man. It's awesome. Dude, I could talk to you all day. I love picking your brain.
Yeah.
No, yeah. But I don't know, I think we're running late. Hello.
Yeah, sorry we kept you so late, man.
I appreciate it.
But I appreciate you coming down, man. Like I said, we love the brand. I'll just getting to get to know you and the struggles and the mindset more than anything of the company. I really respect it even more. And like I said, the way that you guys stand behind your athletes and do business, I really, really appreciate it. You coming down and spending the time with us, man.
PSD, everybody go buy PSD. If you're not wearing PSD, you're not cool.
And don't give up on that apparel stuff. I like the name, SideHustle Apparel. You just gotta
Yeah, it's just yeah, we'll probably give it another crack at it. It's just right now we're the main focus
Make
is
it
on
your
the,
side hustle.
Yeah.
Don't make it. Don't say you want to get in apparel. Just have some stuff to support your podcast and
Yeah.
make it a side hustle.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the plan. But
Appreciate
oh,
you guys
man,
having me.
thank you, Kurt. We appreciate you, man. Huge fan of the brand, huge fan of you. And
Yeah.
hope you nothing but success.
I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Same with you guys.
Wish you
Appreciate
success.
it.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thanks, brother.